TomaraDawn, Book 1 of 10, Chapter 2. Here we begin. Even with the atomic drives pushing the ship at incredible speeds, it will still be a while before they reach the Pluto station. When he gets there, he expects to be greeted by the priests. They will then begin refilling the atomic engines on the ship using robotic controls. Next, they will equip the ship with 4 weapon systems. These weapon systems have been designed specifically so they can punch through the hide of the organic ships. The weapons may be powerful, but he was told that the armor on his ship would be like holding up a sheet of paper to stop an arrow. So in other words, fire first and hope for the best. The reference to an arrow was used because most people on his planet have no idea what a gun is. There are few, however, who do, or those who have been part of the exploration on the lunar station, having found the place stocked with guns. Perhaps his ancestors used guns as trading tokens. On Max's planet there still are wars, but wars are conducted with swords. Even though arrows exist, a lot of times both sides will agree to mutually ban arrows, letting the warfare take place with nothing but swords and shields. Wars act as population control and a form of letting those with the most numbers win. 'Cause if you can rally 1,000 troops to your side and the other guy can only rally 100, whoever has the most men will most likely win. But that's not necessarily true with swords and shield, because of thousands of untrained men versus 100 trained men can win. With guns, especially the automatic ones, training isn't necessary in order to make a mess. For they destroy, they are useless because it's too easy to kill, with too little time to think about who you just killed. Whereas with the sword, you have to at least look your opponent in the eye. You have to acknowledge and can't say, "I didn't realize." What were the people in the past thinking for inventing such horrible devices? Alright, they're useful. It stopped the terrorist. Thankfully the terrorist had never seen a gun. Otherwise he would have reacted differently, like setting off the bomb immediately. Maybe the humans who lived on the moon are no longer alive because of guns. Their wars were too vicious, their ambitions too great, and their sights set beyond the heavens itself. Not only that, Max and a few others had the privy to information left behind by those who lived on the moon. Apparently they fought over ideas and religion. Yet the religion that now blankets his home planet came from a time when the world had almost lost faith in everything. Very few religions remained, allowing the Earthchild religion to spread so fast and so quickly before anyone realized that the whole world had become one religion. This all came about through peaceful means. Not one person was killed in the name of his religion. His religion was truly the religion of peace. This is the proof that the elders hold up as those in power, saying, "Look, religion destroyed the world, yet a unified religion brought us peace, economic stability, social stability. Yes, we have our wars, but our wars are regulated and controlled." The weeks now turn into months after months, and everything is uneventful. Except like last time, he is woken up in the middle of sleep to be notified of more cases of food poisoning. These cases were even more severe. Thankfully no deaths. Rumors now were being spread by some of the crew that this is a sign from the gods, telling them to stay away from the stars. Max looks at the food they'd eaten and sees a wide diversity. Food poisoning doesn't make sense with such diversity. He then begins to look at the chef roster. 2 names are the same. Could they both be saboteurs, or is it just one of them? He goes to confront the 2 chefs. As he walks into the kitchen, he calls them by name. One of the chefs reaches into his pocket and slips a vial out and drinks it. He then turns towards Max and says, The others will triumph, for I have failed." Max lets the security team take the chef to the medical facilities. Max then returns to the bridge to inform the other officers of what has gone on. Then he receives the report from the medical facility that the cook has died on the way to the doctor. Max asks the doctor, "Was the poisoning that strong?" The doctor said, "It's the same poisoning used in the crew, but its dose was quite a lot higher." "Oh," says Max, "so it killed him?" "Not exactly. It was the combination of poisoning and the bruising he suffered. See, the poisoning was an advanced blood thinner, and the bruising allowed him to bleed out." Max says, "We got a problem." Then he begins to wonder, did the security staff kill the cook out of hatred for what he had done? Or did some of them kill the cook to keep him quiet, so he wouldn't tell who the rest of the members are? Max now has to put those members of that security group on the watch list. For starters, he breaks up the crew so they're no longer working on the same team, with 2 of them now assigned to janitorial duty. A few of the janitors in turn were assigned to security duty. This way, if any of them have any plans, they will have to learn new tricks that they weren't ready for. This might help Max catch them off guard and cause them to make a mistake. Caution is the buzzword for today. Finally, his ship pulls into the Pluto station, and his crew is given shore leave. This will be the last shore leave that they will ever receive for a long time. Max had almost expected the station to be cold, but on the contrary, it was warm and inviting. He is lamentingly forced into unplanned work due to his captain's duties, as he has to make sure that the dead cook's body is sent back to the homeworld for a proper Skith funeral. The Skith, Max ponders, what a strange phenomena. Apparently they are born from human ascendancy, but they are all physical and mostly instinct. It turns out Skith can only eat human decayed flesh, and in the past they used to kill humans, then drag the body off to let it rot, before they can eat it. Now society has found a peaceful coexistence with the Skith, because all funeral arrangements end with the deceased being turned over to the Skith for handling. The Skith are funny. They have long lifespans, low intelligence, armor plating that makes them resistant to most swords, and they are immune to almost all known diseases. Yes, the arrangement with the Skith may seem strange, but in reality, blood can be extracted from the Skith, allowing us to make powerful antidotes that can cure a human of almost any disease, including cancer. Yet many think kill them off. They are disgusting. They are horrible. But when you think about how much good they contribute to society, it's a sacrifice we all must make. In Max's society, Skith funerals are considered an honorable funeral. But he did learn the ways of the old lunar station usually involved cremation. The dust was then in turn spread amongst that with the lunar dust. After a 4-week stay at the Pluto station, his crew, now 127 on his ship, departs for the vast expanse of unknown space. Will we find death or salvation? And if Max finds the gods, will they be willing to share or help his people further? Those are the questions waiting to be answered. Yet Max wants to remain an atheist, so part of him does not want to believe in the gods, but part of him wants to believe in the hope that there are beings out there that can lift his race beyond their meager existence, so they can span star systems and learn untold knowledge. Finally, after 4 months of heavy acceleration, they are finally far enough from the Pluto station, and far enough from the gravitational eddies of his home star system, that they can now attempt their people's first faster-than-light jump. They calculate where they want to end up, tabulate all the numbers, forcing the computers to be crunching and crunching their destination for hours. The crew is now almost holding their breath as the countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... There's a shudder. The view screen goes black. Max's vision begins to blur. The whole crew seems to be responding with similar episodes. Crew members are hitting the ground, holding their head and moaning in pain. A few are able to maintain composure. Max realizes that he is the captain. He cannot show weakness. He must fight the blackout, because they are only in FTL space for maybe a minute or two. Time is kind of uncertain because of the pain and the way the brain is affected. They have emerged into empty space. Off in the distance they see a pinprick of light. Spectrum analysis shows that it's not their star, nor was it their intended destination. For some reason the calculations were off. Thanks to the way the drives work, you do not end up in a star system. You always end up thrown outside, even if the calculations sent you to the inside of the star, as the gravitational flux would throw you out. Almost like it's a safety measure built into the drives by the universe itself. Almost. The crew begins scanning empty space for any clues, for any telltale signs that the gods might have once been here. Around the star there is rock debris, yet further out a small gas planet can be found. Rocks orbit it. There is nothing here big enough to call home, nor is there anything big enough to be worth colonizing. Hours of scanning go by. Eventually, Max decides to return to his quarters for rest. The first officer takes over the monotonous job of watching the crew of priests scanning the heavens. Sleep goes according to plan, except he is woken up a half hour early. First officer is ecstatic because they found something. Found something? Max says. Already? He thinks out loud. Wow, the gods must be blessing us on this one. Is this their way of showing us a sign? Max shakes his head and says, I'm an atheist, remember? Leaving signs out here deliberately wouldn't be their way if they existed. Leaving Deck C, he hops on an elevator and goes to Deck A, where he is confronted by an image on screen. The image is of a craft with a parabolic-type dish. that is punched full of holes. Dust has accumulated around it. But how it got their attention was a gold plaque that managed to reflect sunlight their way. It has a golden disc on it with something written on it, but the images are too far and too grainy for them to clearly see what was written on the disc. Max has to authorize launching of the probe. The priest says, "The ship has been out there for a long time." Max asks, "How long do you think?" The priest says, "It's hard to tell. Maybe once we bring it aboard for observation we'll be able to know more, and it's traveling at a pretty nasty speed as well. I do not see any atomic drives on it yet. How did they get something to go this fast?" Another priest suggests, "Maybe they used booster rockets and got it up to speed by powerful atomic rockets, and then let it drift. But what is the purpose?" One of the officers suggested that, "Maybe it's some message from the gods." As they get closer, the probe begins to show what's on the golden disc. They can now clearly see images of humans, and they can see the writing similar to that of the lunar colony, now extinct. Max says, "That's bizarre." Then one of the priests said, "Perhaps the lunar colonies were looking for the gods as well." "Perhaps," Max says, as he sits back in his seat and tries to calm himself down. It's a few days later when they bring it aboard. Analysis of its power source allows them fairly accurate dating. They're able to determine that it was using a plutonium oxide power cell that relied upon radial thermoelectric generation, and judging by the decay, they were able to estimate that the craft was built over 12,060 years ago. Microdust and debris have pitted the gold disc, yet it is still clear to see the disc had deliberate scratchings on it. These are audio recordings. They began to try and piece together the audio recordings. The languages they soon hear are words that haven't been spoken for 10,000 years, and many have been forgotten, cast into the voids of antiquity. It was like listening to a ghost. The music was beautiful. Sadly, stone pits rendered a lot of it useless and unlistenable. Max decided to log all the information. He said, "Send the probe back into space, and give it a safe trajectory so that it'll stay in orbit of the system forever, perhaps." "What do you mean?" says the first officer. "This is a significant step forward, and we have learned a lot. This could be proof that the others believed in the gods as well." "Well," Max says, "to me it's more of a funeral marker to show that a great civilization has once been here in the past. If we leave it out here, maybe humans in the future will find it and learn something from their past that they had forgotten. For me, I can see that any civilization has the risk of growing arrogant as they grow more and more powerful. This shows that we were not the first objects made on Homeworld to make it this far. So in that respect, it beat us here, and it deserves the honor remaining a vigilant marker for the eternities to come." Crew gathers around to give the interstellar Voyager a heroic send-off. They salute as once again it is ejected into space. Their shoddy probe pushes it into an orbit that should last forever. With the few weeks left before the FTL drives can be fully charged, the crew settles down to games such as cards and other entertainment. Time to relax before the next time your head is pounded into something that feels like concrete. Finally, time arrives as the engines begin to fire up. Once more, the same familiar lurching and shaking begins, followed by the feeling like somebody is running a mixer in your head. This time, Max blacked out, but only for a few seconds. He didn't fall over. He retained his composure, still sitting stiff in his chair. Hopefully no one noticed. Perhaps because everyone else was experiencing it. Perhaps no one cared to notice. This time, as they emerge into space, a star of slightly home-like color greets them. Scanning for planets. This system has 4 planets, with 2 of them that are like Homeworld in size. The third planet is 1/4 Homeworld size. It shares an orbit closely to the 4th planet, a gas giant. Distant infrared scans show that planet A has an average temperature of about 12 degrees Celsius. At its coldest point, a temperature of -2 degrees. Its warmest point is +36 degrees, with 80% of the planet's surface as landmass. Immediately, Max orders a probe sent to this planet. Planet B also shows some interesting readings. The average global temperature is about -12 degrees, where its coldest point is -40 degrees, with its warmest point at +15 degrees. Here, too, they also send a probe. 82% of this planet seems to be covered in water. Enough time ticks by for Max to have a nice, restful sleep. He returns to the bridge with a few hours to spare before the probe's data comes back. As the data is converted into images, plants and animals now begin to fill the screen. They see a world covered in plants, and rabbit-like animals eating grass against the endless meadows. The following scene almost appears surreal, as we see another creature that looks similar to a rabbit jump over and attack another rabbit, tearing it to shreds. It is a carnivore that kind of looks like a bunny, and it appears to be a very successful hunter, for it looks like its prey. Max wishes such anomalies didn't exist, so doing his best to ignore the scene of gore, turns over to the new data coming in on Planet B. No land animals can be found, but there are plenty of life. This includes plants and trees, and there even appears to be fish in the water. Either of these worlds would make a beautiful home for the people of his world. The other part that startles Max is the fact that this plant and animal life look a lot like Homeworld. Is Homeworld life just a common rule in the galaxy? Is everything supposed to look like Homeworld? Or is it here because someone put it here? Completed scans of Planet A did not reveal much, but scans of Planet B found the wreckage of a probe. Possibly it was a seed ship carrying the seeds of life. Wow, Max ponders. Did his ancestors do this? Did they actually come this far to place seeds amongst these foreign stars? Or was his race seeded by the gods themselves? And was it the gods themselves who put life on these planets? More mysteries await, and hopefully they will find the answers. As they engage the FTL drives once more, in the next few jumps they find only rocks, dust, debris around the stars they hop to. It became so routine to the point that no one was expecting what happened next. They emerged from FTL space with their heads still pounding. Scanners showed interplanetary ships mining asteroids. Their presence didn't go unnoticed, as many radio signals quickly turned their way. Some of them are constant, as if being used as some kind of scanning tool. A few others seem to be containing communication. The priests pull up sounds made by alternating signals. These words do not make sense. They are alien and strange. Needless to say, Max must learn more, so they launch a probe to the planet where they can see life hovering around. In time, images from the probes come through. They can see humans. They can see buildings. Is this the planet of the gods? Perhaps not. The probe was quickly shot down by crude kinetic weapons. Crude as they may be, the probe was not designed to withstand such an assault. It was only meant to look and observe. Max now began to wonder and worry, for it'll be many weeks before the FTL drives are up and running again. Even with the reactors running at max, it's all they can do. He gives the order, "Reactors to full power, all non-essential to emergency power only." The hallways are now switched to emergency lighting only. Rapid charging the FTL drives is not a very good idea because it does some damage to the organics that'll take time for them to heal. With the situation they are in, it might be a good idea for them to hightail it out of here as fast as possible. The other option, he has the priests continually trying to establish peaceful dialogue with the people of this planet. Attempt after attempt fail. Low wattage laser beams from some orbital station around the planet hit the hull of their ship. Thankfully, natural heat dissipation of the metal causes almost no damage. And yet these laser blasts are repetitively becoming more and more frequent. Is it an attempt to communicate? I don't think so. The beams are too powerful for communication, but strong enough to do damage at close range. Thankfully, they are beaming over such vast distances that the beams lose some of their cohesion. That is the only thing that is saving the ship right now. For if they were a few AUs closer, the laser beams would be cutting divots in the hull. And were they to make it half an AU from the laser source, these laser beams would be able to cut the ship in half, albeit slowly. They notice a number of missiles being launched from the planet, but the missiles are slow. They're using chemical rockets. This interplanetary civilization is still using chemical rockets to travel amongst the planets around their star. Relief fills Max's bones as he settles back into the captain's chair, realizing that they got a few extra weeks before the missiles even come close to the point of threatening their existence. Finally, the drives are fully charged, and once more they return to FTL space. Leaving the missiles now partway to a target with no target at all, Max smiles to himself as he fights the blackout of FTL space, only to be faced with a star system with more rocks and more dust. This continues, jump after jump. Finally, they find something interesting. They find a system with a like home world, along with a radio signal, albeit very weak, beep, 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 coming from the world. So that the nuclear drives do not consume too much fuel, and they are in no rush, they take the most fuel-conservative approach that they can to the planet. Several months roll by, and finally they are in orbit of this planet. The signal is now being pulled in stronger as they are closer to the source. A probe yielding high-altitude photograph shows no sign of current human settlements. Images show plants, old buildings, debris, and wrecked vessels. Even in space, they find pieces of spaceships, busted satellites, broken and forgotten weapons. A few of the priests begin pulling some of the satellites aboard to study them. Most of them are nuclear-powered, with the majority designed for surveillance. A few were designed as weaponry platforms. These happen to be a type of weapon they have never seen before. These weaponry could do some serious damage, especially in the wrong hands. The priests will have many sleepless nights interpreting and deciphering what these weaponry can do. More to the point, Max wants to find out what's causing the signal. Where is the signal coming from? For the vehicles that lay rusted and broken have plants and vines growing over them, yet not so completely concealed that you cannot tell that they are vehicles. The signal seems to be coming from a heavy concrete bunker of a sort along the equator of the planet. Max and a few security officers, along with a couple of priests, board a shuttlecraft and head for the planet. Yes, they are all equipped with guns, for they do not know what to expect. Could be friend, could be foe. The time to come in peace is when you can guarantee your life. Here we can't guarantee your life, so here we come in curiosity. If those we encounter are friendly, then we will come in peace. If they are combative, we will turn them to pieces. Or so Max hopes. The shuttlecraft is shaped like a rectangle with 4 thrusters on it. The rear thrusters are higher up on the frame, where the 2 front thrusters are lower down on the frame. So both thrusters can be aimed in the same direction when going forward, whereas both thrusters can be aimed straight down when it's time for liftoff and landing. A combination of aerobraking, using the hull to slow the craft down in the air, along with a combination of gently applied thrust to slow the shuttlecraft enough so they did not have to worry about burning up in the atmosphere. They now have a slow, quiet descent to the ground below. The scenery reminds Max of an uninviting jungle. Uninviting in that you don't know what's hiding in the lush bush. It could be a snake, a rabid cat, a free-running skith, you never know. The crew, too, feels this edge as the shuttlecraft doors open up, leaving them to gaze upon the lush, green environment. Everyone seems to be holding their guns a little too tightly. Hold them too tightly, and you'll not be able to react fast enough, for your muscles will be stiff, but not quick. You need to hold your gun a little loose, but keep your muscles spring-ready and spring-loaded, so as to twitch and aim at the right moment. Max knows this is not a battle-hardy group, for this is their first time seeing anything that could possibly put their lives in serious danger, and he is their captain that put them there. He remembers reading footage of the lunar colony about how men, when they entered combat for the very first time, have a high mischance. It's as if they were deliberately trying to avoid shooting at the enemy. Once they became seasoned and knowledgeable at combat, those that survived seldom missed. But here, Max can see one of the reasons, for stiff muscle retention will slow their aim, causing jerky movements instead of the smooth, fluid-like movements needed. Max tries to tell him a gentle joke to see if that can break the freeze. Seems to relax them a bit, but not quite enough. Needless to say, they have to focus on the signal, because it could be a signal for help, or it could be a clue from the gods. Leaving 2 guards to guard the shuttle, 5 of them press forward into the jungle. One of the security guards, who is really good with a sword, is hacking the dense vines and brush away. However, this really slows their approach. After a few hours, they are finally in front of a building. A massive, rusting steel door greets them with ancient defiance. This only serves to spring their curiosity into a deeper level of query. This door doesn't look like it's been opened in over 100-some years. Trying normal means they were unable to open the door. It is bolted and rusted shut. However, due to the vigors of time, the metal has become brittle, so a simple explosive pack, made with the help of lunar archives, should be more than enough to bring the door down. Max sets one up, and they head for cover. Pop! The brittle, ancient door yields its secrets like a piñata. The stale, dirty, musky, stinky, and ancient air spills forth. Strange. Max thinks the signal can't be from a living being. Entering the broken doorway, they see a storage room. A type of fungus grows over what looks like countless tons of weapons. Guns and weapons, the toys of mass destruction, make for a beautiful shopping list for the avid explorer. There is also a stairwell that leads up and down. Max and 2 scientists head up, as the security guard and the other scientists head down. The next upper story is filled with banks and banks of what look like computers. Not one light is blinking, not one fan motor is humming. These old machines are as silent as stone. They detect the signal as coming from above them. Max was just about to climb the ladder when the other group returned to report that they went down 3 flights of stairs and were halted by water. The lower half was blocked, so they returned. Carefully, Max climbs the ancient ladder. He finds a glass canopy that is cracked but still intact. Vines almost completely cover the dome. Just enough light is leaking through to hit upon a solar receptor. These meager rays of light are just enough to power a crude but durable handmade radio. The priests quickly analyze the bones and notice that they are vaguely humanoid. Not more than several million years of evolution or more must separate them from our species. 2 bones are packed up and taken away for genetic sampling. Maybe later they can determine the true origins of this race. Is it of his homeworld or somewhere else? Max disconnects the radio signal device, making the planet now forever quiet. He then goes down to the other floor, to the massive computer. When he sees anything that might be a data storage device, he begins yanking them out and throwing them into a satchel. Returning down to the lower floor, where the moldy weapons are stored, he then orders the security guard to grab a few of them. Hopefully they're not too dangerous. Anything that looks like it might explode, or anything that looks like it might be used as a missile, is to be left behind, because it could be considered unstable ordnance. Max is more interested in the fact that these weapons look like energy weapons, at least the majority of them do. Packing up, they head for the shuttlecraft. Some humanoid-type creature is seen scuttling through the bush. The security guard instinctively fires and misses. Max felt like chastising him and telling him to hold his ammo, for they might need it for later. Then he considers that maybe the noise might have sent the creature further away. Finally, they reach the shuttlecraft. It is clear the security guards are definitely spooked, for something has them at super watchfulness. Max asks, "What's wrong? Don't you see it? They're all around us. They got us surrounded. There could be 15, 20 of them, perhaps more." Max, "Okay, everyone aboard the ship." They all promptly board the ship, and just as the shuttle doors are closing, a spear comes flying in and snags one of the security guards in the arm. "Ah!" she hollers, knowing full well the wound is not life-threatening. As the door seals, they begin liftoff. The sound of spears bouncing off the hull rings to the occupants within. Images show a primitive man throwing spears at the ship. Max thinks to himself, oh, how far the mighty have fallen. Once more, they are safely aboard the starship. The startling part is the wound on the guard's arm is not healing right. The doctors have almost tried everything. That weird bacteria infection is the likes that they have never seen before. He would lose his arm under normal circumstances, but they have skith blood saved for emergencies. The skith blood product cures the infection, allowing the security guard a quick and full recovery, while within the few months that it takes in order to get away from the gravity well of this solar system. This time also allows the priest time to finally decode the genes found within the bones taken from the planet. The genes suggest a common ancestry, but that common ancestry could only have occurred millions upon millions of years ago. This implies something quite baffling, for as far as Max knew, his homeworld was the source of human existence and the true cradle of mankind. Could this be wrong? Could humans have been birthed somewhere else amongst the stars? Perhaps from this planet below? Perhaps even further than one can even begin to dream? With each puzzle, the questions grow deeper and deeper, and the endless depths of space begin to look more and more scary. That is the end of Chapter 2. So stay tuned, and we will bring Chapter 3 to thee.